What would you do if the darkness started watching you back? And how long could you stay sane when the silence begins to whisper your name? Welcome to Classic Storytime Hub. Tonight's story is Watchdogs by W. Jacobs, a classic story, reimagined and retold for the modern age.
The old man lifted his glass like it was the last good thing left in the world, and maybe, for him, it was. He took a slow sip, savoring it, then exhaled through his nose as if time itself had loosened its grip for just a moment. "This," he muttered, tapping the rim of the mug, "and a quiet pipe, that's about all I've got left." A faint, crooked smile appeared. "Best part is, neither of 'em asks much from you, not like teeth do, when you ain't got any worth talking about." He set the mug down with care, almost ceremoniously. Then, shielding a match from a wind that wasn't even there, he lit his pipe with slow, deliberate precision, like a man who had nowhere to be but all the time in the world to get there. For a moment, he just watched the smoke curl upward, his sharp, aging eyes narrowing as if measuring something invisible. Then he spoke again. "People talk a lot about kindness to animals," he said, glancing at the traveler across from him. "Sounds nice, feels right." A pause. "But kindness to people, that's rarer, means more." He gave a small nod towards the empty mug. "That pint you bought me, it's gone already, but I'm just as grateful as if it were still sitting here." His voice softened, drifting. His gaze wandered beyond the shade of the trees, out towards the open fields where the air shimmered with heat and silence. For a while he seemed to forget where he was entirely, lost in something distant, something only he could see. So much so, he didn't even notice when the innkeeper quietly returned and replaced his empty glass with a full one. The old man jolted slightly when he finally saw it. Too late. His hand knocked against the table, spilling a bit of the drink. He frowned. A waste. A small one, but still. "Funny thing," he continued once the innkeeper was gone, his tone sharpening just a little. "Some folks pour all their kindness into animals, like that's enough." He leaned forward slightly now, his voice lowering. "I never trusted that kind of kindness." Another pause. "Reminds me of a man, came down from London some time back, had more money than sense. Dangerous combination, that." A thin smile returned. Name was Bunnet. He tapped the side of his pipe, thinking. "Rented Farmer Hall's place for the summer. Old enough to know better, but didn't." The old man let out a quiet breath, as if bracing himself for the memory. "You ever seen a man try to fix the world without understanding it first?" He didn't wait for an answer. "This one tried. Oh, he tried." His eyes darkened slightly. And that's when the trouble started. It didn't take him long, less than a week in Claybury, and Mr. Bunnet had already decided something was terribly wrong. Not with the place, with the people. He said it one evening, standing stiffly in the village schoolroom, his voice full of polite outrage, how shocked he was at the way animals were treated. You could hear the silence in the room. Not agreement, not guilt, just silence. And then, when he was done speaking, when he'd said his piece and looked around, expecting something to shift, he made his mistake. A big one. He offered a prize. A gold watch. Old, valuable, sentimental. It had belonged to his late sister, a woman, he said, who had loved animals more than anything in the world. And he would give it to whoever proved to be the kindest to them before he left. For a moment it sounded noble, generous, almost admirable. But Claybury wasn't the kind of place where kindness grew naturally. And by the very next morning, everything had changed. Bill Chambers, for instance, he took the milk meant for his own baby and gave it to the cat instead. When his wife protested, just spoke up, he silenced her the only way he knew. Hard. Fast. No one spoke about it afterwards, not out loud. Then there was Henry Walker, caught leaning over Charlie Stubbs's fence, feeding chickens that weren't even his, just in case someone important happened to be watching. Didn't end well for him either. And Sam Jones, well, Sam took things a step further. Brought a sick rabbit into his own bed, said it needed warmth, said it was the humane thing to do. His wife didn't agree. Didn't get the chance to, really. She left that night, half-dressed, shaken, and not planning to come back soon. Across the village, people began performing kindness, not feeling it, performing it. Stopping animals in the road just to fuss over them, talking sweetly, touching gently, always looking over their shoulders to see who might be watching. Especially Mr. Bunnet. One afternoon, Peter Gubbins walked right past his house carrying old Mrs. Broad's cat in his arms. Now that cat was a nasty creature, mean, unpredictable, the kind that didn't forget a grudge. But Peter, he held it close, kissing the top of its head, whispering nonsense like it was a beloved child. Sweet little tiddlums. The cat looked like it was 1 second away from losing its mind, and maybe it was. But none of that compared to Bob Pretty. The first time Mr. Bunnet found him, it was quiet, almost private. Bob was crouched low beside a hedge, completely still, focused on something in the grass. Mr. Bunnet approached carefully, curious. And then he saw it. A toad. Old, broken, one leg twisted badly. "What's wrong with it?" Mr. Bunnet asked. No response. Bob didn't even look up. He just stayed there, studying the creature like it mattered, like it really mattered. Then slowly, gently, he took out a handkerchief, wrapped the toad inside it with the care of someone handling glass, and stood. "What's wrong with it?" Mr. Bunnet repeated, now hurrying slightly to keep pace. Bob glanced at him, calm as ever. "Legs hurt," he said simply. "Poor thing." A beat. "I'll get it home, clean it, set it somewhere soft, maybe damp moss." His voice dropped just a little. "But I don't reckon it's got long." That did it. That was all it took. Mr. Bunnet was impressed, deeply, moved even. The two of them walked together after that, talking as they went, and to Mr. Bunnet's surprise, Bob hadn't even heard about the gold watch. Didn't care for speeches, didn't waste time on gossip, said he had work to do, a garden to tend, a wife to help, children to put to bed. Simple things, important things. It sounded honest, too honest. And over the next few days, they kept running into each other, talking more, trust building, little by little, until the third day, when Bob returned with the toad. Alive, not just alive, perfect, healthy, moving like nothing had ever happened. Mr. Bunnet called it a miracle. And maybe it was, if it had been the same toad, but it wasn't. Of course, he didn't know that. Not yet. By then, he'd taken quite a liking to Bob Pretty, found himself seeking him out, trusting him, admiring him. Which made what came next all the more dangerous. Because Bob Pretty wasn't just clever, he was patient. And patient men are the hardest to read. One day, Mr. Bunnet found him again, this time with his dog,
A big, rough-looking animal. Ugly, if you were being honest, but smart. Very smart. It stood there, tongue hanging out, watching Bob from the corner of its eye. Not relaxed, not happy, just uneasy. As Bob patted its head gently, calling it soft names, smiling, and the dog didn't smile back.
"Lovely old dog, aren't you, Joseph?" Bob said softly, his voice dripping with affection. The dog didn't move. It stood stiff, watching him. "There's kindness in his eyes," Mr. Bunnet added, leaning in slightly, convinced he saw something gentle there. "Oh, he's family," Bob replied with a warm smile. "Ain't you, my beauty?" His hand slipped into his pocket. A second later, he flicked something to the ground, fast, too fast. Joseph bolted, no hesitation, no second thought. The dog yelped, loud, panicked, tail tucked tight as it tore across the road like it had just escaped death itself, gone in seconds. Mr. Bunnet blinked, stunned, his eyes still fixed on the empty space where the dog had been. Most men would have felt awkward, embarrassed, caught, but Bob didn't flinch, not even a little. "Amazing, ain't it?" he said calmly, watching the distance. "The sense they've got." Mr. Bunnet turned slowly. "Sense," he repeated. Bob nodded, smiling like everything made perfect sense. "His stomach's been off lately. Knows it too, so he's starving himself a bit, clearing it out." He gestured faintly toward where the biscuit had landed. "Knew he couldn't trust himself round that." A pause, then almost thoughtfully. "Shame men ain't built the same way with drink." His eyes flickered. "Would have done some good if Bill Chambers and Henry Walker had seen that." Mr. Bunnet nodded, impressed, deeply impressed. "Quite right," he murmured. "If only more people had your sense, your kindness." But Bob shook his head immediately. "No," he said, almost humbly. "Ain't that." He looked away for a moment. "Ain't to my credit, not really. You raise men different, they turn out different." Another pause. "Give Sam Jones, Peter Gubbins, Charlie Stubbs, Dickie Weed the same bringing up I had." He let the sentence hang. "They'd likely be better men than me." And just like that, he stepped back, said his goodbyes, left. Simple, clean, like nothing had happened. Not long after, Mr. Bunnet had barely settled back into his house when Henry Walker came knocking, not casually, urgently, worried. He stood there shifting his weight, hat in hand, clearly troubled. "It's the kittens," he said. 5 of them, newborn. His old cat had hidden them away in the wash-house overnight. Henry swallowed. "I can't drown 'em," he admitted, shaking his head. "Not those little innocent things, not like most would." His voice dropped. "But I don't know what else to do." Mr. Bunnet straightened. There it was again, a problem he could solve. "Couldn't you find homes for them?" he suggested. Henry shook his head immediately. "No use," he said. "Too many cats, not enough homes." He hesitated, then added quietly, "Bill Chambers drowned 6 just last week." A beat. "Right in front of my boy." Mr. Bunnet's expression hardened. "That won't do," he said. He began pacing the room, thinking, turning the problem over like it was something delicate. "We'll find homes," he decided at last, "when they're old enough." He stopped. "I'll go around myself." Henry thanked him, relieved, hopeful, and left. But as he walked away, he was thinking, hard, because something about all this didn't sit right. By the next day, something strange had happened. Everyone wanted a kitten. Everyone. Peter Gubbins offered to take 2. Others asked for 1 each. Some even insisted. When Mr. Bunnet returned, he was glowing with satisfaction. "You've no idea," he told Henry, smiling warmly, "what kind-hearted people live in this village." Henry said nothing.
"You should have seen Mr. Jones," Bonnet went on, "the smile on his face when I asked him to take one, pure joy. And Henry Chambers," he added, lowering his voice slightly, "he told me he hasn't slept since what he did." A pause. "He even offered to take your old cat to make up for it." Henry forced a nod, but inside something twisted, because none of it felt right. Not really. Not when he knew the truth. Not when he could see what was happening. His kittens, his own kittens, were being handed out, and somehow other men were getting the credit for raising them, showing them off, inviting Mr. Bonnet into their homes to admire their kindness, their care, their good hearts. Henry Walker watched it all unfold, and for the first time he began to understand. This wasn't about kindness, not anymore. This was something else, something quieter, something cleverer. And somewhere in the middle of it all, Bob Pretty was still smiling. Kindness, that was the word Mr. Bonnet had brought with him, soft, harmless, almost noble, but in Claybury it spread like a sickness. Before long the village wasn't the same. Men who'd shared drinks together for years stopped speaking. Neighbors turned cold, suspicious. Even the women, usually the ones to smooth things over, were just as sharp-tongued, just as quick to take offense. And the animals, they changed too. Cats, dogs, anything that could beg, whine, or stare long enough, they started behaving like they owned the place, as if Claybury had quietly handed itself over to them. One afternoon, no fewer than 7 people stopped Mr. Bonnet on the road. 7, all eager, all indignant, all telling him the same thing, that Joe Parsons had laid down rat poison and killed a mother rat and her babies. They said it like it was a crime, like something sacred had been broken. And still, Mr. Bonnet didn't see it. Not yet. It took time before anyone realized what Bob Pretty was really doing.
At first, the idea sounded ridiculous. Bob? After the gold watch? No one believed it. They gave him too much credit for that. Too much sense. Too much cunning to chase something he couldn't possibly win. But then, little things started surfacing. Stories, details, patterns. And suddenly, it didn't seem so foolish anymore. It seemed dangerous. That's when the village turned. Almost all of them went together, straight to Mr. Bonnet. Not quietly, not carefully, but all at once. They told him everything. About Bob's past, the poaching, the tricks, the way money had a habit of finding its way into his pocket, whether it belonged there or not. At first, Mr. Bonnet refused to believe it. He couldn't. Not about Bob. Not about the man he trusted. But doubt, once planted, doesn't stay small for long. He spoke to the parson. He listened. And slowly, his opinion shifted. By the end of it, he wanted nothing to do with Bob Pretty ever again. That night, the cauliflower was louder than usual. Voices raised, tempers close to the surface, everyone talking at once, everyone with something to say. Everyone, except Bob. Bob Pretty sat there quietly, calm, still, drinking his beer like none of it mattered, a faint smile resting on his lips as if he were watching something unfold exactly the way he expected. "You lot are going about it all wrong," he said at last, almost lazily. "If you want that gold watch." A few heads turned. Some laughed. "It ain't for me anyway," he added, shaking his head. "I'm just a working man. I know my place." Henry Walker snorted. "Don't know how you ever thought you had a chance, Bob." A ripple of laughter. Then Bill Chambers leaned forward, grinning. "How's the toad, Bob?" That did it. The whole room broke. Laughter filled the air. Loud, mocking, relentless. But Bob? Bob just sat there, smiling. "Go on," he said calmly. "Laugh." His eyes moved slowly from one face to another. A pause. "The only thing I regret," his voice softened, "is that you can't all have that watch." He took another sip. "You've worked hard enough for it, raising Henry's kittens for him, hanging around Mr. Bunnet like that." The laughter faded slightly. Something about the way he said it didn't sit right. "We've all got a better chance than you, Bob," Dickie Weeds said, grinning from across the table. Bob looked at him, really looked at him, and then he nodded slowly. "That's your ignorance, Dickie." The room went quieter. "Because the more I think about it," he leaned back slightly, completely at ease, "the more I reckon I'll win it after all." Another burst of laughter, louder this time, almost desperate. Bill Chambers laughed so hard he knocked into Peter Gubbins, spilling his drink across the table. "Laugh while you can," Bob said, his tone sharpening just a fraction. "Because the ones who laugh last," he let the words hang, "laugh best." Silence crept in around the edges. "I'll have that watch," he added quietly, "if only to spite the lot of you." Sam Jones leaned forward, smirking. "And how exactly are you planning to do that, Bob?" Bob's foot tapped once against the floor. Firm. Certain. "I'll win it fair. For kindness. To poor dumb animals." "Hear, hear," Dickie chimed in, winking at the others. "Fancy a bet on it, Bob." Bob shook his head immediately. "Now," his voice was calm again, "I don't take a man's money." A faint smile returned. "I earn mine." Dickie leaned in, eyes gleaming. "You won't win it." No response. "I'll bet you a shilling you don't." Bob didn't even look at him. "I'll make it 2-1. Still nothing. 3-1. Bob turned away completely, starting a different conversation, as if the offer had never been made, as if the outcome was already decided. Bob didn't answer right away. He sat up slowly, eyes fixed on Dickie, studying him, measuring something. The noise in the room faded into the background as the two men locked into a quiet, unspoken challenge. Seconds passed. Then, "All right," Bob said at last, calm and certain. "I'll take it." A small shift in the room. "But only if Smith here holds the money." All eyes turned to the landlord. Smith gave a short nod. That was enough. Bob reached into his pocket and pulled out a single shilling. He didn't hand it over quickly, not carelessly. Slow, reluctant almost, like a man parting with something heavier than it looked. Dickie dropped his own coins beside it, grinning. And just like that, it began. After that, Bob changed, subtly but noticeably. He sat there with a darker expression, quieter than before, especially when Dickie started talking about how he'd spend the winnings. That seemed to bother him, more than it should have. Then Sam Jones leaned in, sensing an opportunity. "Care to double it?" he said. "6 this time." Bob didn't answer. He took another drink, then another, thinking, weighing. And after Bill Chambers bought him yet another pint, he agreed. 1 bet became 2. 2 became 5. 5 turned into 13. By the end of the night, nearly every man in the room had money riding against Bob Pretty. It was Saturday. Pockets were full, confidence even fuller. And Smith? Smith kept it all, carefully noting every coin on a slate behind the bar. Dickie glanced over at him. "Why not have a go yourself, Mr. Smith?" Smith wiped the counter slowly, not looking up. "Don't know," he muttered. "Chance of a lifetime," Dickie pressed. Smith coughed lightly. "Looks that way." Sam Jones frowned, uneasy now. "But he can't win," he said. "Mr. Burnett himself said the man ought to be locked up." Bob shook his head gently, almost pitying. "He's been misled," he said. His voice was softer now, measured. "He's a kind old gentleman, when people leave him be." A pause. "I'll show him." His eyes flickered. "Show him he's wrong about me." Then, almost as an afterthought, "Still, shame it's just a gold watch. Could have been something useful." "You haven't got it yet," Bill Chambers snapped. Bob smiled faintly. "No," he said, "not yet." Sam leaned forward again, more serious this time. "You stand to lose a fair bit, Bob." "A beat. If you want, I'll give you your bet back." Bob looked at him. Really looked. Then he shook his head. "No, Sam." A small smile crept in. "I won't take advantage." Another pause. "If I lose, you'll have yourself 6 pence." He stood. "Maybe buy a rabbit hutch." A few uneasy laughs. "Good night, all." As he passed through the room, Bob didn't leave quietly. He ruffled Bill Chambers' hair, something Bill absolutely hated, then clapped Henry Walker on the back so hard it nearly knocked the breath out of him. Laughter followed, but it wasn't as easy this time. Something about it felt forced. The next day, some of them went back to Mr. Burnett, tried again, told him more stories, more truths, but it didn't matter. The old man had made up his mind. He didn't want to hear Bob Pretty's name again, not once. And with that, the mood in the village shifted, lighter, more confident. Sam Jones even joked about drilling a hole through his 6 pence, wearing it around his neck just to taunt Bob when it was all over. They were sure now, certain, Bob had overplayed his hand. For weeks, Bob disappeared into the background, quiet, still, almost uninterested. He didn't compete like the others, didn't parade kindness around for show, didn't chase attention. Instead, he watched. And every now and then, he laughed, said the whole thing was nonsense, said the watch was probably brass anyway. Just a joke. People started to believe it, started to relax, started to think, for once, Bob Pretty had made a mistake. Then one afternoon, just days before Mr. Burnett was due to leave, Bob made his move. He took Joseph out for a walk. Not hurried, not obvious, just wandering, casual. He lingered near the farm, watching, waiting, until, by pure coincidence, he crossed paths with Mr. Burnett near Coe's plantation. Bob smiled instantly, warm, friendly. "Good afternoon, sir. Fine weather we're having, ain't it?" No response. "I've just brought Joseph out," he continued, nodding toward the dog. "Hasn't quite been himself these past couple of days. Thought a bit of fresh air might do him good." Mr. Burnett stopped, looked at him, cold, hard. Then, without a word, he walked past. Didn't acknowledge him, didn't slow down, didn't even glance back. And for the first time, Bob Pretty didn't smile. Not fully. Just a slight tightening at the edge of his mouth. A crack. Small, but real. Because now the game had changed, and whatever he was planning, he was running out of time. "I only wanted your advice," Bob called after him, quickening his pace. "About the dog." Mr. Burnett didn't stop, didn't even slow down. "He's delicate," Bob continued, almost apologetic now. "Sometimes I wonder if I've been too soft with him." "Go away," Mr. Burnett snapped, without turning. "I know all about you." A beat. "You do well to change while you still can." For a moment, Bob just stared at him, quiet, still. "If any man has something to say about me," he replied slowly, "I'd rather he said it to my face." His voice dropped. "I'm a poor, hard-working man. My character's all I've got." Mr. Burnett didn't hesitate. "Then you're poorer than you think." Silence. "I wish you good afternoon." He turned again and walked away. "Good afternoon, sir," Bob said softly behind him. Too softly. There was something different in his voice now, something hollow. "I suppose some people have been telling lies. Funny thing, I never thought I had an enemy in the world." He clicked his tongue lightly. "Come on, Joseph." A pause. "Come on, old friend." What happened next happened fast. So fast it barely made sense. A shift, a movement, and before Mr. Bennet could even react, the dog lunged, teeth locked, clamped tight around his leg. No growl, no warning, just silence. Waiting. "Help!" Mr. Bennet screamed, his voice tearing through the quiet air. "Call him off! Call him off!" Bob froze. At least, that's how it looked. He stood there staring, mouth slightly open as if the moment had stunned him. "Call him off!" Mr. Bennet shouted again, struggling, trying to push the animal away. "Why don't you call him off?" "Don't move," Bob said suddenly, his voice sharp with alarm. "Don't move, whatever you do." "Take him off me!" Mr. Bennet cried. "Call him away!" Bob shook his head slowly, almost regretfully. "I don't like hurting his feelings. They've got feelings too, you know." A beat. "And besides," his eyes flickered, "what if it's not his fault?" Silence stretched. Cold. Heavy. "What if," he leaned slightly closer, "he's gone mad?" "Help!" Mr. Bennet screamed again, louder this time, desperate, breaking. The sound echoed across the fields. Bob winced. "Why won't you keep quiet?" he snapped suddenly. "You're frightening him, making it worse." Then, just as quickly, his voice softened again. "Joseph, leave it now, there's a good dog." A pause. "I might have a biscuit for you." Still nothing. The dog remained exactly where it was, still, unmoving, unyielding. "Why don't you let go, eh?" The old man's voice cracked. "Pull him off! Hit him!" And for the first time, Bob didn't answer right away. He just stood there, watching, thinking, as if deciding exactly how far this was going to go. "Hit him?" Bob recoiled, genuinely startled, or at least that's how it looked. "Strike a poor, helpless creature that doesn't know any better?" He shook his head slowly, almost in disbelief. "Why, you'd never forgive me." A pause. "And I'd lose the gold watch as well." "No, you won't," Mr. Bennet shouted, his voice breaking under pressure. "You'll have just as much chance as ever." He struggled to stay still, his breath uneven, panic rising. "Just do it, quickly." Bob hesitated, long enough to matter, long enough to be noticed. "I would break my heart," he said quietly. "He'd never forgive me." His eyes lifted slowly to meet the old man's. "But if you're willing to take responsibility," a beat, "and go straight home," another beat, "and give me that gold watch now for kindness to animals," he tilted his head slightly, "then I will." Silence. Thick. Heavy. The kind that only exists when someone realizes they've already lost. "All right," Mr. Bonnet shouted. "You shall have it. Just get him off." Bob didn't move. Not yet. "For kindness to animals," he pressed softly. "Honor bright." "Yes," the old man snapped. "Yes." That was enough. Bob lifted his foot and drove it into the dog with a sharp, sudden kick. Joseph yelped, stunned, releasing his grip instantly and backing away, confused, obedient. Just like that, it was over. Bob bent down at once, all concern again, helping Mr. Bonnet steady himself, examining the leg carefully. "Barely broke the skin," he said, almost cheerfully. "Fine set of teeth on him Joseph's got, best in Claybury." As if that made it better, as if anything could. They walked back together, slowly, quietly, and before the evening was done, Bob Pretty had the watch. He later claimed Mr. Bonnet made a speech while handing it over, something about principles, about disappointment, about regret. But Bob said he couldn't quite remember the words, and even if he could, he wouldn't have repeated them. That same night, he returned to the Cauliflower, right on time, to collect. The room fell quiet when he entered, all eyes on him, on the watch, on the man they thought they understood. Bill Chambers made a speech, loud, bitter, full of something that wasn't quite anger and wasn't quite admiration either. But before it could land, Smith, the landlord, stepped in, put a stop to it, collected the money, paid it out. Clean, final. Bob Pretty took it all. Every coin, every glance, every unspoken thought in that room. And through it all, he smiled. Because in the end, while everyone else had been busy trying to look kind, Bob Pretty had understood something far more important. Kindness was never the point. Winning was.
And thus the story ended. If you liked this journey into the worlds of classic literature, do not forget to support us by subscribing so we can tell you more. And hey, if there's a classic tale you'd love to hear told in this suspenseful style, drop its name in the comments below. Your suggestion might be our next chilling adventure.